Now, in the light of the strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, TVC Breakfast is beaming the searchlight on Nigerian universities.
Well, from dilapidated structures of teaching and learning in universities to the inability of government to meet the demands of staff for improved welfare, a poor ranking of Nigerian universities in Africa and the world, and then the challenges of Nigerian universities are enormous.
Yes, indeed. Now, while the United Nations Education, Social and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, recommends that developing countries dedicate 26% of their national budget to education, Nigeria has never made it close to that figure, remaining at 6% in the case of the 445 billion naira allocated for education in the 2017 budget.
Well,
now,
50 billion naira was
yes.
only allocated in the education budget for capital expenditure. Now, this shows that education is largely underfunded by UNESCO's standards.
Nigeria has 40 federal universities, 45 state universities, and 68 private universities.
Well, these 153 universities are ranked well below their counterparts in the world based on the quality of teaching, research, knowledge transfer, international outlook, citations per capita academic performance of an institution, international mix of students, among others.
Nigeria has, Webometrics, the largest global academic ranking of higher education institutions, places the best Nigerian university at the, 1,032nd place in its July 2017 edition. And that university would be the UI, University of Ibadan. Now, the top private university was ranked 2037th.
Well, that mind-boggling ranking really has been worrisome to many in the country. And this 2017 Times Higher Education ranking, no Nigerian university is ranked in the top 500. Only the University of Ibadan, again, of all Nigerian universities, made the list of 1,000 top global universities, and it's even sitting at 601st position.
And no Nigerian university made it to the top 800 universities in the world in the 2017 edition of the academic ranking of world universities. In their 2017 ranking of Nigerian universities by the National Universities Commission, NUC, only one private university made it to the top 10 and only 3 in the top 30. So how can Nigerian universities get back to good old days when Nigeria once used to have some of the best universities in the world? Where did we go wrong? Dan Ekere is our guest this morning. He's a lecturer with the University of Lagos. Dr. Dan Ekere, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
What happened? Where did we go wrong?
What is the same issue as we are saying in funding? That is where we went wrong. You know, because we are not talking about competencies of individuals. Because if you go around the top universities in the world, you find Nigerians. And they have not been found wanting in terms of, capacity, in terms of ability, in terms of, intelligence. So if Nigerians are able to perform in all the, top class universities all over the world, it shows that the challenges we are having are environmentally constrained. You can reduce them to the issue of funding. If you look at the medical sector, it was the take-home packages that made so many of them to flee so many years ago. And most of
still fleeing anyway.
Good. Yeah. Most of the in the clinics, people travel to all over the world to receive treatment. You find Nigerians there. So if these Nigerians were incompetent, how come they are employed in those places? So the challenges we are having, because people have always talked about, no groundbreaking researches and the rest, but interestingly, they've equally mentioned some persons who have achieved some feats here in Nigeria. So
in spite of the...
before now.
Okay.
So you need to ask yourself, how were they able to do this? It was because the environment then was fertile. There was enough, provision for education. So for now, the challenge we're having is that education is not part of a priority list. And that is why you continue to have these issues of, people complaining about some, graduates not being employable and researches not being of the quality they expect. How do you expect those researches to be done? That I should go and sell my father's land to make a research, or I should sell my children to make a research. Now, in those countries where institutions of this of higher learning are making, great waves, you find out that education is highly subsidized. The state governments, they put so much into it. Even though you find so many countries of the world not having federal universities, so-called, but you still find out that the way and manner they approach their education system, they put so much in order for the systems to be able to survive. That has not happened in Nigeria. Here, we devote more to security, and that is because we have trivialized education. At the moment you trivialize your education, obviously you have security challenges.
All right, let me come in here. From what you've said so far, it seems that the problem bedeviling the Nigerian universities is not just a structural problem. It seems that good policies are not even in place to make Nigerian universities thrive as they were. Now, the question is, why is it difficult for Nigerian universities to generate funds themselves and then, be able to fund themselves like some international universities have been able to do, partner industries, in carrying out researches, and then, they get to make money? Yeah,
thank you. Now, when you look at those areas or those places where universities partner with industries and the rest, you find out that a lot of those industries actually devote funds to research. Now, in Nigeria, how many bodies do we have that fund research? Because you can count so many of them, in Europe and in America. You talk about the Fulbright, in fact, there are so many, all right? And they devote billions. Some of those, bodies, their budget is even as large as Nigeria, what they vote for research. So when you have that kind of environment, you will find maybe an organization that wants some innovation in a particular area, and they put resources into it. Here, the challenge is not about whether we can do those researches. It's about whether we actually have confidence in the education system, or whether there is a deliberate design to break it down so that private universities can thrive.
Now,
and people see private universities as business.
Absolutely. Is autonomy the way out? The last governor of Hong Kong, Chris Patton, actually said, let me quote him, universities should be the bastion of freedom in any society, free from government interference. And of course, ASU, the Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria, has been calling for autonomy for universities and so many other stakeholders. Is that really at the root of this, apart from the challenge of funding?
Well, funding is a basic issue. The issue of autonomy, we need to understand it very clearly. ASU is not saying government should hands off from universities.
Totally.
Yes, that's not what they are saying. We are talking about how universities are run. Okay, ASU is not saying government should not fund universities.
But in the governance of universities?
Yes,
okay.
So that is where the issue is.
But what about the exemption from TSA?
Well, for me, I really don't see that as a major challenge. Okay. I don't see that as a major challenge. So if we are not exempted from TSA and the funds needed are provided, what's your business? What's your problem with TSA? So, because if the law has provided that all government funds should go into a government account, I don't see any problem with that. Because, and again, that is one of the surest ways you can even monitor the funds that come to government. So when you operate universities that become central bank on their own, you have to surely go. There's no way you have so much money in the system and you'll not find corruption.
Now,
so
speak to the issue of autonomy. To what extent should autonomy apply to Nigerian universities? Okay,
now, part of the issues of autonomy, we are talking about, appointments of,
VCs, vice chancellors.
We are equally talking about, how the universities manage themselves, run their programs, all right? We are looking at how universities on their own can as well generate some funds, okay? Not necessarily to the extent that government will hands off, but that they will be able to manage these resources in the particular, manner that best suits those universities. Now, when it comes to the issue of appointment, for instance, they have their needs. So a situation where you are going to have issues that have to do with, okay, the government has this policy of employment and the rest, and if such issues are affecting the system, it's going to be overbearing on the system. So these are some of the areas where ASU is talking about autonomy. Not necessarily that government should hands off from funding. You see, but I don't think that is the most critical issue.
So what is it?
The most critical issue, like I will continue to say, is funding. Is reducible to funding, because you need funds to carry out researches. Now, if you've been watching so many programs on television, particularly look at Nigerian, all right?
Yes.
You find somebody who would devote years to looking at how ants behave, how crocodiles behave. Now, do that in Nigeria, whether you will not die the next week of hunger. That you spend your time, because what will anybody benefit from you studying ants here in Nigeria? But some, institutions have devoted funds to that. And because of that, you can study their lifestyle and the way it affects the ecosystem.
And speaking of funding, can you leave funding alone to government? I think Azizat asked a question earlier about, other organizations coming in to help out, setting up foundations.
Yes.
Yes.
University sure. And that is one of the reasons why I say, okay, give them this leverage to the extent that, well, they could generate some funds to run specific, programs, But what I'm saying is that should the government even say that is not possible, it means that whatever you need for whatever you would have, raised those funds for, we can provide. If that is done, I don't think there will be much problem. Now, once you provide these funds, there are people who have interest in different areas of researches, all right? And the moment you know that you are secured, your family is secured, then you devote all your time to that. Then you begin to, carry out your research to a point where the world will begin to feel it. But where you are battling with the issue of survival, you have children, you've not been able to pay their fees, you can't pay rent, no accommodation is provided for you by the system, so you need to, So when you have all these challenges, as we speak, there are people who come from Ota and the rest of the places to replace the University of Lagos to work. And you know the condition of the road. What kind of research do you expect such a person to,
low motivation, really. Yeah. Now, earlier you talked about maybe there is a plot kind of to make private universities thrive at the expense of public universities in the country. And of course, NUC, the National University Commission, is even saying that at this time it's still processing about 200 new private universities licenses.
Yes.
Really, so and interestingly, from the information we gave earlier before we introduced you, you'd see that even in the world ranking for this year, private universities ranked below public universities in the country. So you think really that this could be a way of pushing out public education in the country at a higher level?
Well, the way it is going, it seems we are moving in that direction. But I expected that both of them should be left to coexist. Government should concentrate. So you begin to make this competition and see whether it is actually better in the private schools or in public schools. If government is prepared to put funds into, the university system and the private hands are coming on board, they will look at that as a standard so that you don't just create mushroom, glorified secondary schools or primary schools in the name of universities. Because so many of these people who are building universities are actually businessmen. They are not looking at what comes out of the system per se. They are looking at what they make from the system. So if you have this at the back of your mind that you are a businessman and what you want to achieve is profit, all you will need to do is put in structures that will attract people without necessarily having the wherewithal to run the system in such an effective manner to produce the desired result.
And there was a report not too long ago looking at the way Nigeria's tertiary education degenerated over the years and said when it was fully in the hands of government, Nigeria's universities were first class. They were on the world rankings. And gradually they got into the hands of private individuals. And like you said, they are for profit. And fundamentally, universities are not meant to be, for profit. Now,
before you go on, NJ, very quickly, I want to read out the description of Nigerian universities by the Times Higher Education World Ranking this year. It says that Nigerian universities are renowned for outdated syllabus, inadequate funding, poor power supply, poorly motivated staff, and even substandard facilities.
That in itself speaks to the issue of curriculum review. Is there a need really to begin to look at the kind of curriculum we're putting out? Because some are already saying, look, some of the courses we go to universities to study now will be totally irrelevant in the next decade or so. Some are already irrelevant.
We need to understand that the university system is a very dynamic system. There is no static syllabus. Universities, particularly departments, have over time reviewed their syllabus, all right? The various syllabi of the...
To reflect the changing needs and times?
Of course, that has always happened. You see, but the review alone cannot translate into what you are looking for. You need to, support it with the needed environment for that review to have effect.
Before you continue, for example, some schools are still teaching students shorthand. And this is
Pitman's
global
shorthand, for that matter.
Exactly, a global villager. The world is a global village right now that even 7-year-old kids, 5-year-old kids know how to operate the computer, yet they are teaching shorthand. Are you saying that they still fine-tune their syllabus to, you know, to reflect today's trends?
Yes, that's the truth. The truth is that over time, universities review syllabus, all right? But that is not to say that you might not find exceptions, issues where you still find those things that perhaps are not too relevant to the present. All right? But again, you will need to ask yourself questions. What are these issues that are actually relevant to the present? Because a lot of people emphasize science, technology, that you need to, you know, be science-driven, you need to be technology-driven. But you ask yourself this question: what is the biggest challenge of Nigeria? Is it a problem of science? Is it a problem of technology?
Or the problem of education
It's
as a
just
whole?
a problem of the mind. Is it science that addresses those issues? You see, because we are now overemphasizing those, you know, to the detriment of the real issues that are affecting us. Because what we have today is a total breakdown, total collapse of values. That is why people you can steal everything that belongs to a state, take it to somewhere, you know, and lock it up in a house that appears dejected. All right? And the money will just be there in dollars. Meanwhile, your surrounding environment, even perhaps the road to that particular house where you are stocking this money, is impassable. So you have, is it technology that brought about that attitude? No. You see, we have not dealt with the issue of the mind, the issue of the human being. Because the biggest
And can the mind be reformed without proper education? There's a strong correlation between development of a people, not just a nation, and education. South Africa, for example, is part of the G20. And, you know, people have said, look, there is a strong link between, take University of Witwatersrand, for example, University of Cape Town. These are top universities that are on the top, you know, 1,000 list. And it's only a reflection of how much investment that the government has put in the education. So if we say we want to develop this economy, this country, this nation, the people, that's obviously where we should start from.
Yes,
get the education right.
You see the issue of the human being. Because it takes somebody who has that knowledge, who has a vision, who has a commitment to know that we need to go this way for the state to move forward, for the whole, you know, place to be good.
So when government still budgets 6%, does it mean that government does not appreciate the need?
Okay. We've not been able to clearly place the place of education. But again, let's not overemphasize higher education. All right?
Education at all levels.
Generally, because the lower level is suffering a lot. The other level is suffering so much, such that at least we attended, you know, primary schools. We attended. There was nothing like a nursery school in my year. So it was primary and secondary colleges. All right. Now, at that level, you could find so many things from the system, a lot of competencies, technical schools, and the rest of them. All right. So many of those things we learned then. And in those days, private schools were for failures, were for people who could not cope, who could find their way to those places, pay money and get away with it. All right?
And that let me
also quickly, because we're running out of time. For example, from what the president just said this morning, that whoever is angry in any way and wants problems to be solved in the country should address the National Assembly, state assemblies, that they are there, you know, to solve problems, chart the new course for the country. And Nigerians have in the past complained, are still complaining, that some members of the National Assembly and state assemblies cannot even express themselves in good English. Some are not even bold enough. And these are the people representing us. And these are the people, when budgets are taken to them, will pass budgets. So is Nigeria really suffering from inertia of quality leadership at any level? In
fact, the biggest challenge we have in Nigeria is leadership, not even corruption. Because when you have good leadership, the issue of corruption will be automatically addressed. But let's get it right. Yeah, the National Assembly and the Council of State and the rest of them, they are legitimate sources, but they are not the only sources. All right? It took the attitude of the devil in heaven for God to re-strategize on how to deliver man. Ordinarily, there would have been so much realization. There would have been nature. All right? Now, you need these ones you call, you know, miscreants and the rest. You need them to ginger a system. Otherwise, the government will be so relaxed. So I think the president needs to appreciate the activities of those people that the government seem to present as, you know, miscreant and all manner of names they call them. Because if we had left the system the way it was, chances that even Buhari would have remained in London till next year. So sometimes you need those actions. You need them to spur action in the state. Without that, there will be no activity. And again, you equally recall that all the issues of, okay, no constitutional breakdown and the rest, not many people voted because of constitution. People voted to see things happen. So let's
how can we begin to make our education more functional in a way that it meets our local and peculiar needs? I mean, many graduates are churned out without the requisite skills to meet today's challenges. How do we begin to change that narrative?
It is the same issue I've been raising. Funding, funding, and funding. The moment you provide those funds, then you give the universities a challenge, all right? Because you don't just put money into a system and go to sleep. If I give you money to, put up a structure somewhere, the tendency is that I will come and monitor what you have done with it, all right? The government should put its eye on the universities and look out for performance, for as long as they are able to fund the system adequately, all right? But when that is not, because as we speak today, the government seems not to be looking at that direction because it knows that it has failed in the area of funding. So you don't demand what you have not really invested.
Dr. Danekere, what you just said brings to mind again the common adage that when you tie a goat to a tree, then you must feed it.
Let me add to that adage. Let me add to that one. Education makes people easy to lead, but difficult to drive. Easy to govern, but impossible to enslave.
Well,
that's what we should take home.
Thank you very much for coming, Dr.
Thank you for having me.
For sharing your thoughts on the challenges facing Nigerian universities today.